sort of be a monitor here to watch him. Okay, and if he does something really screwy, we'll let him out. Now what we have, I'm not really going to do a hoof shoeing demonstration. I'm going to do hoof trimming, which is probably the most common thing that folks here will face. Abby has her jerseys, and she brought them up. Tell me what you were interested in or concerned about.
How can I trim it?
How can you trim it? Okay. The easiest way to trim cattle is to trim them like a horse if they're going to hold their feet for you. Okay, now you can train them to hold front feet pretty easily and back feet pretty easily just for a basic trim. Okay, but the older and the bigger they get, sometimes the harder it is for them to stand, especially for considerable amounts of time. But for little animals like this, it's usually quite easy to use a rasp and just pick up the foot, turn her around, or this guy around so he's facing uphill a bit. Usually if you stand them uphill just a little bit, and I don't know how this fellow's going to be with his feet, but he really doesn't need a hoof trim. His hooves are a nice shape and size, but if the toes were just a little bit long on a really young animal, the easiest thing to do is just nip a little bit off the end of the toe and just pick it up easy. Let me just pick up the foot. Sometimes I'll put my knee under the animal's shoulder like that, and it's quite easy to just rasp a little off the bottom of the foot if you have to. They can learn to hold their foot up very easily. I don't want to take too much off. I'm just sort of demonstrating more than anything. The outside hoof wall is where the animal puts most of its weight. That's also the part of the hoof that grows the fastest here on the outside and the end. So if the toe is long, sometimes I'll just nip the end of the toe, and we will do that on this bigger animal. We'll nip his toes back so they're shorter, and then just rasp them flat on the bottom, especially on this outside edge. You like the foot should have a little bit of a cup to it. Okay, so they're walking on the outside edge with a little cup in the center, sort of like a horse hoof without the frog, and a horse hoof, of course, is all one piece. So this animal, I mean, this is the simplest way to trim an animal's foot. Fortunately, all animals will stand for it. If you do this on a regular basis, they'll soon learn that, you know, it's not such a bad thing.
Now what about the twist in his foot, in his leg?
Foot. Do the back foot? Actually, Tim's animals were quite good with their back feet, but this particular back foot, that's okay. This animal, his toes twist out just a little bit. Is there anything you can do through trimming that might help that on a long-term basis? Maybe. Okay, Roger and I were talking about that earlier. I think if you trim the inside toe just a little bit shorter, he'll sort of stand in. That might help. I'm not sure. I mean, I have seen animals that have been forced to stand with their toes out, and when they're mature cattle, the whole herd have toes that are pointed out because they were up against a cement curb tied in a straight stall or a tie stall, and they couldn't move. So the bones, before they fuse in a young animal like this, that might work. Trimming a little bit, I'm not sure. The most important thing is to keep them keep the toe at a size that's comfortable for the animal to walk. You don't want big long toes that are going to break off, big long toes that cause them to swing their feet out abnormally. But that's the easiest way to trim a foot. Just pick it up. Cattle like you to sort of brace them a bit.
You've got one clean back leg there.
No, I'll even do the dirty one. I don't know how this, I mean, some animals, this animal has always, it seems, been a little nervous with me or men, or I don't know. It's maybe my voice and my manner. But we'll see. I mean, he might start kicking and thrashing. One of the keys to picking up a back foot, the back foot is actually easier for a cow to hold up. They don't like to hold it up. Okay, there's actually less weight on this foot than there is on this foot.
Yeah.
So it's easier. The other trick is, don't pick the foot up so it's comfortable for you. If you want to lift that foot all the way up here, I'll guarantee it's going to fight you every step of the way. But if you lift the foot up just a little bit and hold it down low, you can do the same thing. Nip the bottom, and the lower you hold it, see the higher I lift it, the more he's going to fight. But if I hold it low, you can nip the toes and rest the bottom. The more you do this, I mean, you can train them to stand here when they're little calves and tolerate this, and they'll remember it as long as you do it on a regular basis. Now to shoe an ox, you can't shoe an ox standing up. They won't stand long enough for you to do that. But that's the simplest way to deal with a hoof that's a little bit too long. Dave, can I shake your hand? Okay. Now